This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
13 Daggers Tattoo Studio is looking for a new tattoo artist. Must be established with a strong portfolio and good work ethic. Stop by today at 13 Daggers across from Patriot Park on Fort Campbell Boulevard. Clarksville's ultimate tattoo studio. Tattoos, touch-ups, and consultations. See the artist's work online at 13daggerstattoo.com and get the custom experience you want with killer ink. Book today and get pricked by a pro. 13 Daggers Tattoo Studio. Rockin' hard on the boulevard.
Tobacco Road Sports Radio is so excited to be your home for Triad Sports.
I'm so excited! I'm so excited!
We heard you loud and clear. Our mission is to give you what you want.
You know what I want. I've been asking for it for years. Give it to me. Give me what I want.
The best sports talk and live sports in the Triad, period.
What's up, everybody? Live with Brandon Blake.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Score once again with Brett Wiseman.
Hello and welcome back to the Pit Stop here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio.
Welcome back to Franchise Players, your home for Triad Sports coverage. I'm your host, Desmond Johnson, here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio.
And if you think that's great, wait until you see what's next.
It's going to be good. It's going to be huge.
It's going to be huge.
Tune in at tobaccoroadsportsradio.com. And don't forget to download the new Roku channel, Tobacco Road Sports Radio.
The Hometown Foundation is excited to bring back the Dream Ride experience, August 26th to the 28th at Connecticut's Farmington Polo Club. Join us in celebrating the accomplishments of our Dream Riders while enjoying live music, a car and motorcycle show, family fun zone, pet adoptions, canine demonstrations, the Fireman's Chili Cook-Off, and much, much more. Get your tickets today.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Frankly Speaking Sports. I'm your host, Larry Frank, and we want to thank you so very, very much for joining in on this beautiful Tuesday night. We're joining you right out of Hopkinsville, Kentucky. It is a couple miles away from the Fort Campbell Army Post, and we want to make sure that we thank the current and the former people that have served this great country, America, and the things they do on a daily basis to allow us the freedom to do what we want to do. Thank you so very, very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a full show ahead for you tonight. Just an unbelievable show tonight. We're going to talk about some young stars, a young star who seems to be forgotten in the NBA. We're going to make sure we talk about him in a few minutes. We're also going to have, a lot of people have been talking about the Treylon Burks. Was he in shape? Was he not in shape? Was he sick? What was the reason for Treylon Burks not finishing his first rookout at rookie camp? Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to discuss that, but also a very special guest for you joining us in about 22 minutes will be Jeff Friday, who has served as a strength and conditioning coach for 21 seasons in the National Football League. He's been with the Minnesota Vikings, Baltimore Ravens, Cincinnati Bengals, and he's going to be joining us to discuss some strength and conditioning things that happen at workouts, that happen on a daily basis during the football season, and questions we may have in regards to when players should attend, when players should not attend, or should they always attend. We're going to get some of those questions answered in about 25 minutes. So for those of you that are watching us on Twitter, thank you very, very much. Thank you. Please go ahead, hit the share button. Do me a huge, huge favor, folks. Hit that share button no matter what platform you're on, whether it's Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Northeast Streaming Sports on the Facebook page, any of our Facebook pages. Do me a favor and share this to your timeline or account, wherever you're watching from, so that other people will get the same opportunity, the same chance that you get to watch this great, great show. But we're going to start off with some breaking NBA news just out of the pipe, hot off the press, and we'll bring it to you on Frankly Speaking Sports. The Orlando Magic have won the lottery. Not the lottery that you pay money for, but the NBA lottery. And they will get the first pick in the upcoming NBA draft. Let's go ahead. We'll round out the top 5. Orlando will pick first. Oklahoma City second. Houston third. Sacramento fourth. And Detroit fifth. For a lot of you different fans, Charlotte Hornet fans, know a lot of you tune into this channel, want to make sure that you're fully abreast of your team situation. They will be picking number 13, and then they got the number 15 pick from New Orleans. So Charlotte has 2 picks, it looks like. 2 picks in the first round of the NBA draft at number 13 and number 15. So will Bonchero go first? Will Chad go first? Who knows? But that's going to be up to the Orlando Magic. If you're just joining us on different platforms, NBA breaking news, the Orlando Magic have won the NBA draft lottery and will pick first in the upcoming draft this upcoming June. If you want to go ahead and see more of that, we will try to go ahead and post that later this evening on our Facebook and Twitter pages. But that is the quick NBA news. But, let's stay on the NBA. And I'll tell you what, folks, when you talk about the NBA, a lot of times we talk about the young stars, young and upcoming stars in the NBA. Who are we passing the baton on to in the NBA? And you know what? When you look at this list, for some reason, people forget, and I'm going to go ahead and fix this real quick, if I may here. Some reason let's see if we can fix that. Okay, that should do it there. But, when you look at this, everybody seems to forget the one guy that is probably better than all the rest of them. Maybe the exception with Giannis. But, when you talk about the young stars in the NBA, you talk about them, you hear about Trae Young. You hear about Ja Morant out of Memphis. You hear about Tatum, who's playing tonight against the Heat. And they're unbelievable players, folks. Unbelievable. You hear about Williamson, who hasn't even played yet. You talk about LaMelo Ball, who, I think has yet to prove that he's a star in the NBA. But for argument's sake, we'll put his name down. And, of course, you talk about one of the youngest and best athletes in the NBA, and that's Giannis. And we all know what Giannis does, but the one person, for some reason, I have no reason to understand this, folks. I mentioned this a couple of weeks when I was on the rundown with the great Desmond Johnson. I said one of the best young stars that is being forgotten is Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic, how can you forget this guy from Dallas? He's incredible. And he's still, listen to me, folks, he's still in the NBA playoffs. They're still playing the Mavericks. That's right. And, it's unbelievable that you get a guy there in the regular season, scores 28.4 points a game, 9.1 rebounds, 8.7 assists, does everything offensively you can ask for at the age of 23 years old. Still doesn't get enough credit. This kid, not as only, probably behind Giannis, the second best player, I would argue, in the NBA, or one of them, definitely the top 5. He is better than, and I said it, folks, better than LeBron James right now. Not LeBron James in his prime. Please don't misunderstood me. But based on today's game, he is better. He does everything you want from a teammate offensively. And you look at him defensively, folks, he's a mediocre defender in the NBA. Why he doesn't get as much attention as some of these other guys, I don't know. I mentioned 28.4 points regular season, 9.1 rebounds, 8.7 assists. What is he doing during the playoffs this year? Oh, not much, Larry. In 10 playoff games this year, Doncic is 31.5 points, 10.1 rebounds, 6.6 assists. He's the main reason that Dallas is still in the NBA playoffs. He's the only player in NBA history with over 20 triple-doubles at age 21 or younger. And you hear about these players. I love Ja Morant of Memphis. I would pay every penny I had to see Ja Morant, who came out of Arkansas. Great player. Trae Young's a great player. Williamson, you can't compare because Williams Zion can't get on the damn court. Meanwhile, LaMelo Ball couldn't hold this guy's jock strap if it was right in his hand. Okay, and I'm not knocking LaMelo, but he is no way anything close to Doncic when you're talking about a superstar at this point. LaMelo has capabilities of being great if he gets the right coach. But folks, what is happening? Why don't people realize how good this kid is on the Dallas Mavericks? I love watching him. He's an incredible player, hits a high percentage of his shots. I think he's shooting right at the 47, 48% mark. And this guy, when you look at the young guys and who's going to take over the league, this is one of those guys. Him and Giannis are going to be the ones, and I'm sure Trae Young and Ja Morant and, of course, Giannis, they're all going to be part of this. But I'll tell you what, I am a huge fan of Luka Doncic, and, you just got to give the guy credit and more credit for what he's doing in Dallas. Folks, I want to give you a quick update here. Let's see if that Celtics Heat games, I believe they start tonight with the great Jason Tatum playing for the Celtics, but the Celtics do have two people out tonight. They have Marcus Smart, Al Horford, all going to be out. They do have Tatum, of course, playing, who's averaging 28.3 points a game, 5.6 rebounds, 6.1 assists. And how about Jaylen Brown in these playoffs? 22.2 points a game. But they're playing the Heat, and Mr. Playoff Jimmy Butler, 28.7 points a game, 7.5 rebounds, 5.4 assists. But in order, I'm going to tell you right now, folks, I was wrong. I thought the Nets would beat the Celtics. I thought the Nets were going to make a run for it when they entered the playoffs and run some with it. It didn't happen. They underachieved, as we all know. But as soon as the Celtics beat the Nets, I was the first one to say, watch out for the Celtics. They can get all the way to the finals. Okay, I picked them to beat Milwaukee, and people thought I was crazy. What are you, crazy? The defending champs they're going to beat? Yes, Jason Tatum and the rest of this team is that good, especially when Smart and Horford are in. Now, they're out tonight, but the one guy, if the Heat want to win, because right now, all the Celtics have to do is contain Jimmy Butler, and they have a chance at beating this Miami Heat team. Adebayo, has been, inconsistent throughout the playoffs. You don't know if he's going to score 10 points one game. You don't know if he's going to score 20 points another game. And then Tyler Hero is the same exact way. Hero, who for them, it's the same thing. He'll give you a quick 20 spot, then he'll go down to 10 spot. No consistency there. The only guy that's consistent right now on this Miami Heat team is Jimmy Butler. And let's go ahead and see if we can get a quick update here. I'm going to try to see what I can get on my phone. Let me get it back up here. All right, we'll try that again. Right now it is, let me just update it. End of the first period, folks. End of the first period. The Celtics are winning 28-25. Tatum, 10 points, 5 of 8 from the field for the big man. And meanwhile, give a little credit. Robert Williams came to play today. He's been averaging 10 points a game. He's already got 8 in the first quarter, playing, for the injured Horford and Smart being out. having a very good game. So, meanwhile, for Miami, of course, it's Jimmy Butler leading the way with 6 points. Adebayo has 4 points, and Hero does have 7 points in the first quarter. Actually, he's leading all scorers for the Heat in that game. So, once again, 28-25. The Boston Celtics are leading by 3 after the first period. I'll tell you what, folks, I'm picking the Celtics in this series to win it in 7 games. That's my prediction. Meanwhile, let's go ahead and turn it around here. What do we have as far as the NHL? I know the Lightning are opening up in Miami versus the Florida Panthers tonight. Let's go ahead and see if we can get a quick update on that game. It is right now, it is the third period, 13:29 left in the period. The Lightning are leading by the score of 2-1. The scoring went like this in the first period. It was Florida getting on board. Anthony Duclair went ahead and got his first goal of the season. But the Lightning came back. Corey Perry on the power play tied it up at 1. And then in the third period, at 3:35 into the third period, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare from Corey Perry. So the Lightning are leading 2-1, 13:29 left in the regulation time, let's say. So meanwhile, later tonight, 8:30 p.m., it'll be the Blues playing in Colorado versus the Avalanche. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take a quick break. We'll be back right after this message.
The Hometown Foundation is excited to bring back the Dream Ride experience, August 26th to the 28th at Connecticut's Farmington Polo Club. Join us in celebrating the accomplishments of our Dream Riders while enjoying live music, a car and motorcycle show, family fun zone, pet adoptions, canine demonstrations, the Fireman's Chili Cook-Off, and much, much more. Get your tickets today.
13 Daggers Tattoo Studio is looking for a new tattoo artist. Must be established with a strong portfolio and good work ethic. Stop by today at 13 Daggers across from Patriot Park on Fort Campbell Boulevard. Clarksville's ultimate tattoo studio. Tattoos, touch-ups, and consultations. See the artist's work online at 13daggerstattoo.com and get the custom experience you want with killer ink. Book today and get pricked by a pro. 13 Daggers Tattoo Studio. Looking hard on the boulevard.
We love sports.
Joe Louis, the greatest boxer ever lived.
Not only do we love sports, but we love to debate sports.
He was bad in Jack Clay. He bad in Sugar Ray. He bad in that. Who that? The new boy has Mike Tyson. Look like a bulldog. He bad at him too. He done whip Mike Tyson there. He whip all their ass.
For the best sports analysis in the triad.
What about Rocky Marciano?
In-depth local coverage of your favorite schools and teams.
Let me tell you something wonderful. Rocky Marciano was good. But compared to Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano ain't.
And of course, the best sports debate in the triad.
Beat Joe Louis's ass.
Welcome to Tobacco Road Sports Radio.
Joe Louis was 75 years old when he fought.
You're welcome.
I don't know how old he was, but got it ass whipped.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Frankly Speaking Sports. I'm your host, Larry Frank, and we are a couple minutes away from having the great Jeff Friday, former strength and conditioning coach for 21 years in the NFL, will be joining us. We're looking forward to that. But before we get to that, I heard I'm driving around today, and once in a while I'll turn on sports radio, and for the sake of argument, I'm not going to go ahead and reveal what station I was listening to, but, it really bothered me, and I couldn't believe how quickly a city, a media base, can turn on a particular player. I just can't believe it. I seen it with Ryan Tannehill. I saw it with Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill, a guy who's brought him to the playoffs 3 years in a row, had an exceptional year, can't play well in the playoffs. They want to get rid of him. I thought that was, it can't get any worse than that. How can it get worse? Well, I'm going to tell you how it can get worse. Listen to the radio today. As I do every day. The opportunity of the job I do gives me that opportunity to do that. So I'm over there and I'm listening, and they're talking about how they're worried and how they believe. Listen to me, folks. How these individuals on the radio that do sports radio in Nashville are talking about they have a feeling Derrick Henry is done. Derrick Henry is not done. How the heck can anybody be so ignorant and ludicrous to think this great athlete, Derrick Henry, is in his decline? It's ridiculous. It is totally ridiculous that someone in Nashville, where he has done so well, can easily turn on him, turn the tides, and have his career being over. Ridiculous. Ridiculous, ridiculous, ridiculous. And, let's look at Henry, okay? You look at Derrick Henry, 2019, unbelievable year. 1,500 plus yards, 1,540 to be exact, 16 touchdowns. 2020, can you do any better than that? Yes, you can. If you're Derrick Henry, you come back in 2020, you rush for over 2,000 yards, 2,027 yards. You folks that were reporting about this on that radio station, did you hear me? 2,027 yards, and you say he's declining? Idiots. How can he be declining? Had 17 touchdowns. Now, we move on to 2021. You move on to 2021. Derrick Henry plays 8 games and gets hurt. So the man gets hurt, gets an injury, and you turn on him. You turn on him. How can you do that? How can you be so damn negative in this city and continue to be negative? It's ridiculous. You do it with the Predators. You do it with the Titans. And you do it with the players. And now you pick on probably one of the most popular athletes of our time in Tennessee, Derrick Henry. What did he do last year? Let me tell you, for those that were reporting today, how he has done. 8 games last year, 937 yards. Guys, listen to this. He did more in 8 games than people do a whole season. 937 yards. 8 games, 10 touchdowns. Let me put it into a little bit more intelligent form for those that were talking about him declining. If he would have played the whole year, did not get injured, and continued on the pace he was at, he would have rushed for 2,000 yards, 9 yards shy of 2,000. So based on math and calculation, he would have rushed for 1,997 yards and 21 touchdowns. How can you say he's done? How can you say he is done? It is so ridiculous. Derrick Henry got hurt. Just because somebody gets hurt doesn't mean their career is over. And I cannot believe, I was shocked that somebody would turn on a man like Derrick Henry like that channel did today from Nashville, Tennessee. Just completely and totally ridiculous. Just ridiculous. Let's stay on Tennessee Titan news here for one more second. A lot of people also talking about, is Treylon Burks a concern for the Titans? And my answer is no. And a couple reasons. First of all, if you haven't heard, Treylon Burks goes ahead, shows up to rookie camp, does not make it through the first practice. Now, it has not been reported why, but according to the media, which has it, they feel an obligation to blow things out of proportion so that they can get a story rather than get the details. They were on it again. They went ahead and automatically assumed he was out of shape. Now, they could be right. We have not heard. But he could have been sick. He could have not been feeling well. There's so many things that could have been and might have been there. Now, if Treylon Burks, let's say, came to camp out of shape, okay, first of all, that would be an initial concern for me. It wouldn't have been a smart thing because, he doesn't know what team he was going to. He had no clue where he was going to get drafted and for who. But at the end of the day, if it is, it's not his career, guys. His career is not over because he makes a mistake. A lot of people forget that when these kids, that's what they are, young adults, come out of college, they automatically assume they are grown up 100% and they're not going to make mistakes. There are going to be mistakes along the way. Hopefully they can eliminate these mistakes so he continues to grow and develop as a player. But just because he doesn't finish the first practice doesn't mean he's a bust in the NFL. I had the pleasure and privilege of watching Treylon play when I was in Arkansas for a while in Fayetteville. I'm going to tell you, this guy is a special talent. He is a very special talent, and the folks of Tennessee are going to be very, very happy with what they got. Let's take a quick 10-second station break to allow our stations to identify themselves. And when we come back, we're going to have 21-year veteran strength and conditioning coach in the NFL, Jeff Friday, joining us. We'll be back right after this station break.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Frankly Speaking Sports. I'm your host, Larry Frank, just trying right here to get some of our backgrounds back together here, so bear with me for a moment. There we go. I think we got it now. Yeah, we'll go ahead and put a picture behind me of Jeff Friday. I'm sure he'll appreciate that. Might have been a couple of years ago. I'm not sure when, but we got him. There he is. I'll get out of the way there so he can admire himself a minute. But ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking about getting in shape. What are the expectations of a player when they get to camp, when they go to mini camps, when they go to rookie camps, when there's voluntary workouts versus involuntary workouts and sort of things like that? And I couldn't think of a better person to have join us live tonight as I bring up, there he is, okay? As I go ahead and bring him on, let's welcome in 21-year veteran strength and conditioning coach in the National Football League, was with the Vikings, the Ravens, the Bengals, won a Super Bowl as a strength coach in 2000 with the Baltimore Ravens. Let's welcome in Jeff Friday. Jeff, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Jeff, thanks so very much for coming on. I really, really do appreciate it. Before we get started, Jeff, and I hate using the word drilling you with some questions, but I'm going to drill you with some questions, Jeff. Why don't you explain to all our listeners, because I understand to a degree, but explain to them the definition in the NFL. What is an NFL strength and conditioning coach?
NFL strength and conditioning coach gets players ready for the season. It starts in the off season. Back when I came in the National Football League in the 1990s, it was a 16-week program. It was a long program, about 4 months, in which players participated to get them in shape, and it ran 10 days before the start of training camp. And now with the new CBA a few years ago, back 12 years ago or so, they shrunk that off season down to 9 weeks. So a strength coach really has 9 weeks in the off season with the players. And then there's a 5-week break where the players go wherever they're going to go to train. And then they report to training camp. And as a strength and conditioning coach, my job then is to make sure the players stay strong through the season. And professional football is very interesting because out of 250 occupations, professional football players, it's the fifth highest occupation for injuries. It's the sixth highest occupation for stress. So during the football season, you're dealing with a stressed out, injured individual. So how do you get that player ready to perform at a high level Sunday after Sunday after Sunday? And so that's where the challenge is as a strength and conditioning coach. So it's a full-time job. You have gaps when the players are not with you in the off season, but your in-season program is the program because you got to keep them healthy and strong to perform well on Sundays.
Jeff, if you're, and you work for 21 years, a strength and conditioning coach in the NFL, right after the draft, what is it? I think a week later, if that long, a rookie camp opens up. How disappointed would you be and the head coach of that NFL team be if you saw a player that was drafted, especially in the first or second rounds, and they show up and in your opinion, they're not in shape? Would that bother you to agree, or would it just be something that you just blow off?
I think it's something that happens because these players have been training a specific way to test well. They've been training to test well at either the NFL Combine or their pro day. It's a very specific type of training. They are training just for those tests. That's their number one goal. So they are not training to be in football shape. So what happens is that there's an adjustment. So when those pro day and NFL Combine testing days have passed, then you start to get in football shape. And what happens is that these mini camps come about a week after some of these, or a couple weeks after these pro days, and players are still trying to get acclimated to the sport. And then if you're a top pick, like you mentioned after the draft, you are traveling around doing interviews with teams, maybe doing workouts. So there's no rhythm and a routine. And so then you go to a mini camp and everything is accelerated, not only mentally, but physically in the way you run, because you're going against somebody probably just as good as you, if not better. And so that's when the injuries occur. So it's all within the context of allowing the player to get in football shape. So to answer your question, sometimes you wouldn't get too disappointed because you know that there's a process that they haven't had yet gone through.
No, thank you. I'm glad you cleared that up, because obviously the situation that happened that I know you're aware of, we mentioned earlier with Treylon Burks here, it actually really justified, I hate using the word justify, but clears up that it's not as major as an issue as the media likes to bring things out, as we both know. One question I've been dying to hear an answer to, Jeff, and I swear there is nobody better that can answer this question, and I know you'll give me an honest answer. You hear about players having personal trainers, personal strength and conditioning coach, whatever you want to word it, from the personal side of it. Then you have the NFL team strength and conditioning coach. There's a complete difference. And I know right up front, without even being a wizard at this, that, the personal trainer wants to keep his job. So they're going to pat people on the back probably more than an NFL strength and conditioning coach, because they got their job. They're not going to get fired for, being on these guys. Tell everyone, the listeners that we got a bunch of them out there right now on different platforms, the major difference in your opinion from a person, let's say even a Tom Brady, who everybody knows has his own personal trainer. Remember Mark Gastineau for the Jets, he used to have his own personal trainer. Talk about the difference between having a personal trainer and when they go to camp and they deal with the NFL strength and conditioning coach, and does it sometimes cause a controversy between both?
So does it have a controversy? I don't think so. I think in this day and age, it's more accepted that players feel comfortable with personal trainers. I will say the difference sometimes is the ability to train during the season when the body is damaged and stressed. And that is an art. That's an art that you acquire. Not saying personal trainers can't acquire that, but the reality is they will usually train their clients or football clients when those players are healthy and they're at their peak physical shape because they're not playing the sport. But as a strength coach, we get the players when they're banged up, they're not feeling good, they're trying to recover from a game, and so that's what the real program is. As I mentioned earlier, how are you stimulating them physically when they're trying to recover from Sunday to Sunday? And that's an art. And in the personal trainer world, their circumstance of training an athlete in the off season when they're fresh and all that, it's different. But I don't think there is a controversy there. I think the majority of players work very, very hard, and they have to get buy-in, whether it's from a personal trainer or whether it's from a strength coach. It's all relationship driven, and so those relationships occur on the many different levels with different people around them. And to be honest with you, nowadays players have a whole bunch of people. Like if you think of a race car and you think of all the things of the race car, all the mechanics and all the different people, I mean, that's what these players are. They have their own nutritionist, they have their own massage therapist, they have their own guy here and there. And it's all under the guise of getting them ready for Sunday. And they pay a lot of money for those services of outside people. So I think that's just the reality of the professional athlete nowadays. And so I don't think there is a controversy as long as the player is working hard, taking care of his body, and as long as he performs on Sunday, it's all good.
We're talking to Jeff Friday, who served as a strength and conditioning coach for 21 seasons in the NFL. Jeff, how important, and I would imagine very, is the relationship between yourself and the trainer of the NFL team?
So the athletic trainer and the relationship between the strength coach is very important because we have to know what injuries a player is dealing with. We have to know any rehab protocols that need to be followed. And the athletic trainer represents the medical side of things. Strength coaches sometimes are not really the medical side. So the athletic trainer is really in the know because they're with the team doctors and those that side of the staff. And so that relationship is very important because you want to put up a cohesive front in front of the player, because the player can read between the lines and realize if there's a tug of war going on or if there's no cohesion. A player can pick that up. And at the end of the day, we all want what's best for the player. And so that is a very important relationship because when a player comes in the weight room, they may be limited in what they can do. And as a strength coach, if you ask them to do something that's limiting them through injury and that dialogue has not occurred with an athletic trainer, you can really harm a player that way or exasperate something that's already existing. So it's a very important relationship.
Jeff, how important, in your opinion, first part of the question is it for players, veteran players, to attend voluntary workouts? And from your experience, how upset do coaches really get, even though it is considered voluntary workouts when veterans don't show?
It's veteran players. So let me backtrack a little bit. I started in the National Football League in 1996. The head coach of the Minnesota Vikings was Dennis Green.
Yep.
Dennis Green was of the Bill Walsh coaching tree. And Bill Walsh, they did some really good studies and really looked into how to keep a player healthy. And basically that system was that they try to minimize the amount of time in pads, and you practice really well in shorts. That's the old San Francisco model. And Denny Green had a little bit of that model in him. And then when I became a head strength coach with the Baltimore Ravens, Brian Billick, who was also that same tree, implemented the same type of system. And so because the game is so stressful, as I mentioned earlier, the outlook from those coaches was that the veteran players, they could go ahead and train wherever they wanted in the offseason because that's going to refresh them. And those veteran players, as long as they came back in shape when training camp started, that was deemed okay. Now, within that off season, we had certain camps back then, 3-day camps where these guys would come in and we had our eyes on them and they did their schematics, and you had a week or two where they're coming in throughout the off season. But that was in the old days, and so nowadays it's only 9 weeks. So to answer your question, I think players nowadays, they take good care of themselves. You have to realize the minute you walk in a building of an NFL facility, you are being judged. And with that does come a level of stress. And so some players don't want to deal with that stress in the off season. Who can blame them? Because they get enough stress once July 30th, their training camp comes through for the next, 5 months or whatever it is. And so I just don't. I've always been under the coaching tree where the off season was not quite as important for the physical conditioning, as long as they get together and work on the schematics and some team building does occur in the off season, but really that team building really starts when you form your team in January, to be honest with you, in my opinion.
Jeff, do strength coaches in the NFL, when the season's over, tell players that is it good for the players to have a period of rest where they maybe take a break from it, or is it something that should continue at least at some level after the season is over?
You want to take a break, and it's called passive rest, where you really aren't doing much for maybe a week or two. And then it's active rest, where you're doing things, maybe going for walks, just doing low-level things. And eventually, as the off season goes on, you increase your intensity. And so it is really important to get your vacations, take vacations in that period after the season's over, get your mind off the game. But you want to, after that passive rest period, which is maybe a couple of weeks where you're really not doing any exercise, you want to get back into movement, because the reality is that over time, you never want to be out of shape. You always want to be a couple weeks of it within almost game shape, in a way where, you could just kind of get ready for a game and play. So you never really want to get that far out of shape. So there is a period, though, that your body and your nervous system, all the energy systems, you do need to rest and recover, because it's a grind. I mean, it is a high stakes, high pressure business. The NFL is the top 200 Fortune 500 company. There's pressure there. And so these players feel the pressure. So yes, the period of rest and the off season is extremely important to get recharged for the new cycle, the new year coming up.
Jeff, what percentage of strength and conditioning is mental compared to physical?
I think the mind is huge. I think it's the mind takes over the body. And I think that players who have that ability, that mental toughness, if you want to call it that, that's what separates them from the rest. And it's really interesting, because talking about mental toughness, I was born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I grew up a Packer fan. And in the 1960s, there was Vince Lombardi. Everybody heard of Vince Lombardi. He's the Super Bowl the Super Bowl trophies named off of him. And then there was a quarterback on the roster by the name of Bart Starr. Bart Starr was a part-time starter with the Green Bay Packers for 3 years under a coach who I have no idea what his name is. Bad teams. He was a part-time starter on really bad teams. Vince Lombardi got hired as the Green Bay Packers head football coach, and Bart Starr said that Vince Lombardi developed his mental toughness, and he did that by elevating his confidence and preparing him. So preparation and confidence equal mental toughness. And then his career took off. He said that he went into a situation that he always felt prepared for. And so the point is that mental acuity of players, as long as they're in decent enough shape to do the task, they have to have the mental fortitude to get through and deal with pain. Because if you look at the National Football League, they have a Tufts University equated a hit in an NFL football game by a 240-pound linebacker. It equals, if you stand on top of a goalpost, the crossbar, which is 10 feet high, and if you do a swan dive headfirst into the turf, that's what a hit feels like. Or if you stand there and there's a small car traveling at about 6 miles an hour and hits you, that's what the body absorbs play after play after play. And that's what these players endure. And so the mental side of things, you have to have an ability to block out pain. And there's a scale called the rating of perceived exertion. And so all of us perceive toughness or fatigue in these different situations. Well, these players, their rating of perceived exertion is relatively low for tough situations, meaning that it doesn't bother them because they've developed that mental attitude and that mental capability to deal with, 90-degree weather, 10-degree weather, wearing pads, hitting somebody. That's just part of their nature. They just deal. So to answer your question, as long as they're physically capable to do their job, the mental has to be there, and it's that important.
We're talking to Jeff Friday, strength and conditioning coach for 21 seasons in the NFL. What is the biggest challenge for a strength and conditioning coach?
The biggest challenge is to get buy-in for your program, because in the off season, you're dealing with 80 to 90 players. During the season, you're dealing with 55 to 60 players. And the reality, as we talked about earlier, many of these players have their own personal trainers. And so because there's only a 9-week off-season program, that's 9 weeks where players are expected to be at the facility in the off-season, there's like 3 or 4 months on the front end of that. And there's a good month on the back end of that where they're with their personal trainers or whoever's training them. So as a strength coach, you have to have your I's dotted and T's crossed and know your stuff. But you also have to build a relationship with the player. You have to explain why you're doing things, how it's going to benefit them, how it's going to benefit the team, and you go about it that way. So that's probably the number one thing. It's a relationship-driven job. And if you're good at relationships, you'll be good as a strength coach.
Who has the final say in whether a player is fit conditionally to play or not play?
It's typically the athletic trainer.
Okay.
And then it could be with the position coach. So on game day, let's say there's an injury. On game day, the position coach will take a player out early on a Sunday. They might get out there at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the morning for 1 o'clock game, maybe 10 o'clock or 10:30 before they have to turn in who their players are that they're sitting down. The position coach runs them through drills. An athletic trainer is typically there to watch, and a decision is made between them of whether the player is capable of playing. The strength coach is typically, on the teams I've been with, has not really been in that decision-making process on Sundays.
How important is it for the strength and condition? And I know I'm throwing questions at you, but these are questions I'm sure the fans want to hear as well. How important is it for you to understand, first of all, the illegal and the illegal and legal substances that are allowed to be used in the NFL? And do you think there's too many substances that are being banned from usage?
So the reality is that the player is responsible for what he puts in his body.
Okay.
Period. Which means that as an employee of an NFL team, we do not give advice on supplements. And a player can come in and bring a supplement in, but then they can get it checked with what the regulations are if they want to take it. And usually it's a certified supplement. If it's not certified, that supplement has a chance of containing a substance that could cause them to test positive. And so it's under the guise of they are responsible. So our role as an employee and as strength coaches is all the products that we offer are products that are certified through a certification process that the NFL condones. And so it removes all that ambiguity. And so that's how we approach it.
Couple more questions and I'll let you run, Jeff. You talked about your role, especially before the season starts. You hit on it a little bit when the season starts. Talk about, and I'm sure in a way it has to be pretty drastic, how your role changes from before the season starts to what you do during the season.
So in the off-season program, it's 9 weeks. And the first 2 weeks, it's just the strength coach and the players. The strength coach only gets 2 weeks where they do the running and the lifting. After that 2 weeks is up, then the position coaches can then work with the players. So there's an additional stress because anytime you get a position coach involved, like I said earlier, you're getting judged. And so when they're on that field doing their drills, it's a higher level of intensity. So we tend to back off a little bit in what we do with the players because we know they're getting a stimulation with a position coach. That lasts for 3 more weeks. That's a 5-week block. Us, them, and then for the remaining 4 weeks, then you're going into your 7-on-7s, competition, and then your actual team camp. And so there's a natural progression. So in the off season, when I was with the Cincinnati Bengals, we always had it as a goal of number one, make sure a player gets through the 9 weeks healthy. That's the number one goal. Because if a player misses during that 9 weeks, it's going to set him back. So that's a number one goal. And our number two goal was to establish norms in weight training exercises. Because when we got to the season, we then held the players accountable for those norms. And so then after 9 weeks, the player goes home for 5 weeks. We give them a program. Hopefully they follow it. We typically do a conditioning test on the first day when they come for training camp. And then from that point on, we're lifting them twice a week. And if a player needs extra conditioning, we can maybe facilitate, but typically they're getting their conditioning from the game. There's nothing that replaces the game. You step load up in conditioning to get to a practice situation with a helmet, with the pads, because there's nothing that duplicates that. And that first game, to be honest with you, players are usually, they're not in game shape at that point because they go through training camp. It's a progression. And nowadays, players don't really play a lot in the preseason games. So that first regular season game it's a shock to the system. But you want to get your players healthy and fresh to get to the first game, and that's the objective. And there's some research done a long time ago, I think it was with the 49ers, as we talked about earlier, where they found out that a lot of injuries were happening because of the overload in training camp, and players wouldn't even make it to the first game of the regular season. So so we adjusted based on that. So the goal is always to get the players healthy for game one, and then the game shape will take over after that point. And then we just strength train them twice a week. Sometimes 3 for practice squad guys who are not on the active roster, but are there to practice and emulate the opponent. But it's very structured, very accountable, always comparing what they did in the past. That's one thing a strength coach does. Number one, provide structure. When are you lifting? What does lifting program look like? Number two, provide accountability. Are you on time? Here's what you did last time. Here's how we get better. Number three is expectation. We expect you to be great. We expect you to work hard. You sprinkle a little bit of love in there too. Love, meaning that there's encouragement, meaning that you speak the truth. Truth meaning, hey man, you're not working hard, or whatever that is. And that's really what we do, to be honest with you. Those are the kind of things that I think we do.
All right, last question, my friend. Talk about the fulfillment it is for you when, like in 2000, when you see all the hard work you put in, players, as much of them that can stay healthy as possible with game situations, and winning the Super Bowl. How fulfilling is that for someone like yourself to see all the work you put in have an unbelievable conclusion?
It's very fulfilling because it's the very top. And when we talk about the NFL and you talk about the Super Bowl, there's nothing higher professionally. So it's extremely fulfilling, and a lot of things have to go your way to do that. And as a strength coach, we're just a spoke in a wheel, just one spoke of a wheel that doing our role to get the players there healthy, and fresh. And so the thing that I remember back, when I was part of the 2000 Baltimore Ravens that won the Super Bowl that year, and when I look back, I just look back at the adversity we faced. We had 5 games where we didn't score an offensive touchdown, but we won 3 of them. We had a historic defense. I've been very fortunate in the NFL because with the Minnesota Vikings in 1998, we had the highest scoring offense in the history of the National Football League at that time. We had Randy Moss on one side, Chris Carter on the other side.
Right.
The quarterback who played most of the year was Randall Cunningham with a strong arm and just whipped that ball around. We had a running back by the name of Robert Smith from Ohio State, a track and field guy who could score from anywhere on the field. And man, we scored 556 points and went 15-1 and lost the NFC Championship game. That was a great team. And then I go to the Baltimore Ravens, same strength program, and conversely, we have one of the statistically best defenses of all time. We gave up 10 points a game, didn't allow a 100-yard rusher, and I'm not sure how many games, but it was a record-setting defense. And then what happened was we go 5 games without scoring an offensive touchdown, and the head coach Brian Billick replaced Tony Banks, a starter, with a guy by the name of Trent Dilfer. Trent Dilfer played previously with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and signed as a backup for the minimum salary. And his first start, we lost the Pittsburgh Steelers 10-7. After that, we reeled off 11 straight wins. And so it was the adversity that we faced of 5 games, and there wasn't because the team was very defensive heavy as far as our dominance. There was never any bickering, never any pointing fingers. We had 23 players 30 years or older. It was a veteran team, a tight-knit team. All the players that were there knew their roles and had one focus, and was very talented. We had some Hall of Fame guys: Shannon Sharp, Jonathan Ogden, Ray Lewis. I mean, it was very, very talented. And so I remember that. I remember the journey, and I remember the relationships. That's why I look back. I got my Super Bowl rings in a drawer. I wear that once a year. I mean, it's a piece of jewelry. It's the relationships that when you look back and the adversity, and what it does is it gives you a view of what it can look like to be the best. That's what it does. And as a strength coach, it just gives me that view to help share to others that this is what it looks like. This is what winning looks like. And so that's what it does. And I tell you, I when I was part of the Super Bowl championship team, that was my second year as a head strength coach. I was 32 years old, and I was like, man, there's gonna be a lot more to come. Let me tell you, you got to enjoy it when it comes, because winning is very, very hard, especially in the NFL. And it's we had everybody basically coming back the following year, minus our quarterback. We had an injury to Jamal Lewis, our running back. He later became a 2,000-yard rusher and also had a single-game rushing record that lasted for a while. He blew out his knee with an ACL in training camp the following year, and then it changed. So we won a playoff game the following year, but my point is very hard to win. So you really got to enjoy those moments, and that's what football and all sports is. It's moments. It's the wins. It's the losses. I win a Super Bowl. I've been fired twice. I mean, it's life. It's life. It's just it's ups and downs, and it's experiences, emotions, and so it was a great journey.
Well, listen, my friend, I want to thank you so very, very much taking time out of your schedule to join us on Frankly Speaking Sports tonight.
Thank you.
All right. Stay safe, my friend.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Jeff Friday, who served 21 years as a strength and conditioning coach in the NFL for the Minnesota Vikings. You heard him talk about the Ravens. You heard him talk about the Bengals. And boy, is he right. That was an unbelievable Ravens team in 2000. I was a big Trent Dilfer fan when he was with the Buccaneers, so I obviously rooted for him, not necessarily Baltimore, but for him when he got his opportunity there. And that was a team where you talk about defense dominating, unbelievable. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this hour went fast. Holy cow. Want to thank all of you on all the different platforms for tuning in this evening. And a reminder that we will be back again on the same channels and the same time tomorrow evening. From all of us here at Frankly Speaking Sports, have a good night.